What's up, everybody? It's bshowbrian. Trying something different this week. Gonna live stream this recording of I guess, a podcast episode. Something caught my attention, and I've been, I guess, a sucker for fan theories and I love movie ideas, like scripts that didn't happen. I like hearing people come up with alternate takes for Friday the 13th and the classic slasher movies. And I guess it just gets back to me being a goof, and I guess I don't know, similar to I hate to say fan fiction, but I think it all comes from a place of loving these movies and wanting to see more of them. And with everything going on with Friday the 13th right now, it doesn't seem like there's a new movie coming anytime soon. And I'm not even sure if there's going to be a Crystal Lake series anytime soon, the way things are going. So who knows, I guess. But Giant Freaking Robot actually put an article out. I just saw it today about some of the mysticism, I guess, around Camp Crystal Lake, and it caught my attention. And honestly, at first, I thought, come on, guys, this is getting ridiculous. Like all this fan theory stuff, all okay, I'll break it down real quick. A lot of the things that don't make sense in these movies that we love from long, long ago are because they had to just justify making new movies. That's what it comes down to. And honestly, that's what's kept me from doing fan theory videos on here, because every time I think of one, or every time I see one that I think looks kind of cool, the thing I come back to, for instance, I did one a couple years ago about why Jason could come back to life, right, in part 2. And halfway through recording, I just lost interest because it was yeah, they wanted another movie and they had this other story. That's it. That's all there is to it. But I thought this was interesting. I'm going to put this up on my channel. I'm going to give credit, obviously, to the author in just a second. But I'm bshowbrian. If you like horror movies and you like content centered around classic horror movies, give me a follow and hit the notification bell so you know about new videos when I put them up. For those of you who have been following the channel for a while, thank you. And you may have noticed I put a video up. It was supposed to be like a tongue-in-cheek Wide World of Sports ranking of all the window tosses in the Friday the 13th franchise. And unfortunately, it didn't really come out the way I wanted it to. It just honestly just came off like a nerd in a suit jacket doing his best, sports caster impression or something like that, which was completely far from the original concept. So I'm going to be putting a different one up pretty soon. All 9 of the window tosses in the Friday the 13th franchise. That'll be coming soon, so stay tuned. Notification bell so you know exactly when that goes up. But if you want to hear more about other movies and entertainment, more modern horror takes, I just watched the Creep tapes. I'm going to be talking about that this Wednesday night live on Spitball Media with my buddies John and Shaheen. Find us on YouTube at Spitball Media. But now onto the task, I guess, at hand. Giant Freaking Robot, the article. Let me share it. I'm testing out some software here, so hopefully you guys can see this. But Chris Snellgrove published this 2 days ago on Giant Freaking Robot, and basically the title is self-explanatory. Killer new Friday the 13th theory explains everything in the franchise. Nice hook, I guess. But as I mentioned a minute ago, most of this stuff can be explained by just admitting that they just needed to keep coming up with ideas for new movies. But let's have some fun, right? Obviously, I'd be hypocritical if I took kind of a shitty attitude towards stuff like this after years and years of being interested in fan theories and thinking some are pretty cool. But basically, the gist of it, and I'll let you guys go and read the whole thing, is that Pamela was the night of the original Friday the 13th back in 1979, 1980. My memory's getting fuzzy in my old age. Basically, that she turned to black magic and was completing a ritual and sacrificing people and offering souls or lives to bring back her dead son. And I'm not going to read the article itself too much, but basically, she had already started dabbling in witchcraft, according to this theory. And then on that night, the dark energies in her body when she was beheaded and fell into the lake would have spread into Crystal Lake and would have made the resurrection of I almost said Jesus. Holy shit. It is the Christmas season. The resurrection of Jason was made possible because of her dabbling in black magic. Now, this is bolstered a little bit by, I guess, something, what's his name, Marcus Russell? Whoever did the Jason Goes to Hell film. Marcus Russell? I'm not sure if I'm getting his name right. Again, old age, I'm getting senile, I guess. But basically, he said his idea was Jason was a Deadite. And you see the Kandarian dagger in that movie. You see some of the iconography, like the Necronomicon. And that's how Jason is resurrected, right? I don't like using stuff like that to tie all this together because, again, it's all kind of goofy. But at the same time, it makes it kind of fun. Because why the fuck else would Jason be able to come back? Why would, as he posits in this article, Tina Shepard's dad come back to take down Jason and drown him in the lake? And why would Jason come back year after year after year? Other than, a good Deus Ex Machina coming out from the sky to alleviate all these plot holes. Makes it fun. And Chris, interesting concept. But why wouldn't this work for Pamela? And I guess the article says something, and it kind of lost me because it said something about Pamela was killed and couldn't complete the whole thing. So maybe that's why Jason's destined to keep coming back. Maybe, but then I guess it worked, so how does that, I don't know. It's strange. It is fun to think about why Jason would come back, time after time, and why he was so special and cheated death. But then that doesn't explain Friday the 13th Part 6. Because Friday the 13th Part 6 had nothing to do with the rest of, the lake being the factor in reincarnating Jason. That was straight electricity. Jason was dead. Jason was killed in Part 4 by Tommy Jarvis. They bury him. Years later, Tommy Jarvis comes back, stabs Jason, bolt of lightning, for those of you who don't know. And Jason comes back as an undead, unstoppable zombie. And then I would argue that once he's put in the lake at the end of Part 6, he never really dies. He's just waiting. And then at the end of Part 7, when he's put into the lake, he doesn't die. He's just waiting. And then he dies in a sludge flood in the sewers of Manhattan, and that's a whole other story. So see, that's where these things kind of fall apart for me, because even if you want to do fan theory and fan service and come up with these theories, they always break down because just other stuff that happens in the series. And honestly, I don't want to pick on the guy, because I've talked about some pretty dumb ones before. Talked about some that are good. If you go back and look at Friday the 13th Part 2, I was thinking that maybe Paul faked it, and there's a podcast episode on this that you can check out, but Paul faked it, and he had help from Ted, and maybe the tow truck guy. Because who shows up? Paul shows up as Jason's killing people to save Ginny, and then Ted never shows up. He stays out all night. And he already had help from the tow truck. Like, that stuff you can kind of put together and maybe make sense. Yeah, I'm not buying this one. I don't like the idea of Jason as a Deadite anyway. I guess fans have been trying to work in like a mystical explanation for Jason for decades now. And I think part of it goes back to Jason Goes to Hell. I think part of it goes back to the fact that we don't really know much about Jason's dad, Elias. So, how does he factor into all this? And Pamela, what would she do to bring back her dead son? I've always thought, personally, and again, this is not intended, I guess, of the franchise as it was written, but I've always thought it was cool if the whole Jason thing was really some weird twist of fate with Pamela, because like Pamela, Jason dies and Pamela's doing all these terrible things. She's killing kids. She's poisoning the water. She's setting fires, right? And then finally she gets to, 1980, and she starts killing all the counselors, kills Steve Christie, and she dies wishing she could be reunited with her son. And she's trying to protect people. She's not trying to bring him back. She's trying to stop everybody, right? And I feel, honestly, like if she was really trying to do some weird witchcraft spell to bring him back, she would have been talking about it when she's killing people. Like, why are you doing this? Well, dear. See if I can get close to the camera. Well, dear. I can't. I don't want to knock over my setup. I'm already close enough as it is a little bit creepy. I was going to record something on the creep tape, so I set everything up super close, and I decided not to. I'd wait till we record for Spitball Media Wednesday. But, honestly, I feel like she would have been talking about this while she's killing people. Like, when she's asked why she's doing it, she's like, oh, I couldn't let them open this place again. I couldn't let them open this place, not after what happened last time. There was a boy. That young boy drowned. Why did I make Pamela Voorhees sound like Jerry Seinfeld? Oh my God, this boy! He died in the water! Now I have to stab everybody and slit their throats! What's the deal with reincarnation? I think that's going to be the title of this when I put it back up as a podcast. What's the deal with reincarnation? Why does things that go into that lake come back out? Different than it was before. Anyway, thank you for going with me on this ADD tangent, but I always thought it was cooler to think like it was a weird twist of fate, a cruel twist of fate where Pamela wants nothing more than to be with her son again. And after doing all these terrible things, her son ends up coming back. And yet now she's dead and she can't be with him, and she's never going to be with him in heaven or hell because Jason won't die. She can never be with him. She can never be with him. She'll never be by his side. She'll never hold him again. And she's spending eternity without her son, which the time on earth, probably as a mother who's lost a son, I could only imagine, feels like eternity until you start lopping teenagers' heads off and then have to spend literal eternity without him because now you've somehow caused his resurrection through your vengeance. I thought it was cool to ponder stuff like that. And even that's a stretch. Because if you read all the stuff on the series, it was never intended that way. It's just kind of a twist of fate type of thing, which I still think is cool. But yeah, much love to Giant Freaking Robot. They've got some cool articles. And, Chris Snellgrove is obviously an imaginative, person. It was a nice little read. But again, when you get into most of these fan theories, most of them tend to be one of two things. Either one, trying to understand stuff that was never meant to be understood because it's supposed to be vague or it's supposed to be mysterious, or people trying to connect loose ends and make some other sort of fan fiction out of what already exists. And God knows I've done similar. I've done whole episodes on it, long ones, short ones. Skinny ones, tall ones, fat ones, thin ones. My God, there's so many. But I'm not buying this one. There's some good ones out there, for sure. But I'm not buying this one. Yeah, it's interesting. And the older I get too, like even with the Halloween franchise, which I've talked about, honestly, not as much as I have thought about. I noticed on my channel recently, I haven't done nearly as many episodes on Friday the 13th or on Halloween, which is my favorite film. I haven't done as many episodes on that or videos on that or podcasts on that as I thought I had. And honestly, I used to think like, oh, there's more to it. It's the evil of the night, and it's this really deep, well thought out story. And then you hear interviews from John Carpenter when they ask him about it, and he's just like, it's a guy. It's a guy. And I wanted to make him creepy, so I made him unstoppable. It's not like literally the evil of Halloween, although that's a backdrop and an inspiration. And I see that when I project into it. A lot of this fan theory stuff, We talked about this on Spitball Media a couple, maybe months back, where we reviewed, there was, a franchise, not franchise, a series on Shudder. It was another one of these history of horror movie deals. And everyone's talking about like, oh, the big scary house is really just allegory for patriarchy and establishment and upsetting the apple cart and progressivism. And it's like, guys, it's a fucking house. It's a big, dark, scary house. That's why it's scary. It's the unknown. It's this creepy place that's uncharted and you shouldn't go in there. And that predates like the rights movement of the 1960s and women's suffrage and things like that. It predates Hollywood. I said this on Spitball Media, not to retread myself, but like, I'm sure at some point there was a caveman exploring or hunting, and he went by a cave he'd never seen before, and he got a feeling in the pit of his stomach and thought, I better not fucking go in there. There might be a bear. There might be a snake. There might be another caveman who has me outmatched. Like, to me, that's that sums up. Like, I think, and I'm not gonna name Chris Snellgrove in this. I'm not painting he or she with this light because it was just a fun article for a website, right? It's fans coming up with fan theories, and it's all in fun. But I think when you get into like critical analysis of movies like this, you can tread a line where a lot of people are like projecting their own thoughts and their own feelings and their own beliefs into these movies, as opposed to, what they were really intended, or the simple, I hate to say Occam's razor because it's so overused now when people talk about movies, but the most simple explanation is it was a big, scary fucking house. That's why it's scary, and that's why it's used. Because whether it's a house or a cave or a castle or a creepy laboratory or an abandoned mental hospital, like, for fuck's sake, there's an entire cottage industry on YouTube of people exploring abandoned places. Like, my wife, if she sees a house that was made before like 1947 and it looks unkempt, it looks like it's not kept up. There we go. She immediately thinks it's haunted and there's ghosties in there. It's a fucking thing. It's a human thing. And no, it does not represent the urban sprawl and the white man fleeing the urban areas. It's not an allegory for gentrification. It's not like the threat of the nuclear family decaying. I mean, you can use those things as a stand-in, and you can build a story around that stuff in more modern times. It's just fucking goofy to go back and look at movies, even from the turn of the century, that use big, ominous-looking buildings and say it's about the decay of the nuclear family, because it's obviously not. That whole thing didn't even come about until decades later. So much like that, I think a lot of people project their own feelings, their own ideology, their own whatever into these films a lot of times. And God knows I have too. I think it's just natural to do that. It's like a Rorschach, especially the more simple the premise, like Halloween, Friday the 13th, stuff like that. But again, I'm not buying this. I'll still probably come on and rate these and talk about them from time to time, because some are pretty interesting. But no, I'm not buying this one, and I don't think you should either. But go check out the article. It's a decent read. And Chris Snellgrove sounds like a big fan. So Giant Freaking Robot, Chris Snellgrove. The article is Killer New Friday the 13th Theory Explains Everything in the Franchise. And whether I agree with that or not, I think it's at least worth checking that out. And I want to check out more of their articles to see if they actually have any that hold water. But I'm bshowbrian. Short episode this time, short video. Just wanted to react to this since I haven't put anything up in a couple weeks. Again, I'm going to be redoing the window toss and probably shorten it up and make it a little less ham-fisted. I don't know. Like I said, in my mind, it was like an old school, like, I don't know if you guys remember the Most Extreme Elimination Challenge, where they took Takeshi's Castle from Japan, which was this weird like game show, physical game show, and dubbed it over with English and parodied it, and were goofy. And then at the end, they would do Kenny Blankenship's Most Extreme Eliminations of the Day. And Like, that is what I was going for with the window tosses, because I was just amazed that there was 9 of them. And I thought, if there's enough to rank, I'm going to do this and be funny. And it didn't really come off that funny. So if you watched it, I do appreciate it. And I apologize because it wasn't that good. But I'm going to do another one and change it up a little bit, and hopefully punch up and tool up the funny aspect of it, as opposed to making it look like just a goofy wannabe sportscaster or something. Anyway, that's the way it came off to me. So send fan theories my way. If you see fan theories, if you have them, I know I've got friends that have done it. My buddy Pints and a few others have sent them my way, and I got to get back to doing them because it's not something I do on Spitball Media. But stay tuned. Send them to me. I'll take a look at them. And also check me out live, usually on Thursday nights on YouTube with Spitball Media. This week we're recording Wednesday because of the holiday. But there we go. There's a fan theory shot down. Good job, Chris. Noble attempt and effort, but no dice. But I'm bshowbrian. Thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you next time.